We have the pleasure of welcoming Angela Maiers today to our interview series Leaders Hum. I'm Ashwarya Jain from the peopleHum team. Before we begin, just a quick intro of peopleHum. peopleHum is an end-to-end, one-view integrated human capital management automation platform, the winner of the 2019 Global Cody Award for HCM that is specifically built for crafted employee experiences and the future of work with AI and automation technologies. We run the peopleHum blog and video channel, which receives upwards of 200,000 visitors a year and publish around 2 interviews with well-known names globally every month. And now for our guest, Angela Maiers, the founder of Choose to Matter, has enriched lives with boosting the realization of self-worth of individuals worldwide, an established leader and keynote speaker. Her TED Talks are viewed hundreds of thousands of times, and she has worked with organizations like Apple and Microsoft. Full of positivity, Angela has started a universal movement that helps people realize how much they matter in the workplace, at home, in school, at every phase of a person's life. We are eagerly looking forward to listening to her inspiration and her work today. Welcome, Angela. We're thrilled to have you.
I'm so honored to be here, and this is a testament to the miracle of technology and the age that we're living in. Can you imagine going through what we're going through right now without the ability to make these connections and find out, like, if I thought about what's happening in India, it's not real to me. Now what's happening in India is real to me, and it's affecting real people that I'm connected with. So I'm thrilled to be here and to have this conversation.
Oh, our pleasure. So, Angela, if you could start off with, if you could tell us your journey that took you to Choose to Matter.
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is actually in neuroscience and studying human development and human potential, and moving that into the field of education and teaching and working with young people. I taught every grade from preschool all the way to grad school, and watching this miracle of learning, not only individual learning, but learning as a community, learning as a classroom, learning as a social act, and the power of that, because all of our organizations, at least the ones that are making an impact, are leading because they're learning organizations. They're always looking for what's the next most powerful way to reach our customers, to reach our community, to make an impact. So you can say I'm very passionate about learning and helping create what I call the conditions of learning at scale, because we in school have experienced teaching at probably its best, but not necessarily learning at its best. And there is a difference between delivering content, delivering information, training, versus real learning, where there's agency and empowerment and authenticity. I never really called myself a writer, even though writing has been integral, because we are taught in school that there's a certain qualification to be a writer, that writing isn't just an expression of thoughts, or more important, a pathway to self-discovery. And I think that's what writing was for me, is it's like I didn't know it, or I couldn't articulate it till I wrote it down, and getting comfortable in my own skin as a writer. But part of what I learned from really great writers is not only are they great readers, they're ferocious readers, but they're incredible noticers, like Sherlock Holmes level noticing. And I brought that practice and refined that practice in my classrooms, and started making a point to build in time each day to notice. And what writing does, or keeping a notebook anyway, helps slow that down. It helps increase your not only awareness, but your appreciation, your gratitude, your place and position in the world and what it could be. It is invaluable. And even in this digital age, with everything that comes with that, there's nothing that replaces writing it down and capturing.
Yeah, I really love that idea. But personally for me, I just struggle with so many distractions during the day. How do you think that we should make time to actually, sit and write about things that we notice? Isn't that just too much to handle?
It actually isn't if you don't put parameters around it.
Mm-hmm.
Noticing, so maybe instead of thinking it as a writing notebook, I call it a noticing notebook. To notice and note my present moment, people that were in it,
Mm-hmm.
things that I learned while I was present in it, ideas that aren't formulated yet, that just need to be noticed and put on paper and go back later. So I'm not trying to create a finished product in the notebook. I'm trying to be present and reflective and slow the busyness of the day down. So one of the routines that I've switched is I have my phone by my bed, and I've been working with this app called Calm, because shutting my brain off during the night and shutting my brain off, like if I'm not sleeping, my brain is going at 100 miles an hour. So I built in just 5 minutes, and it can start with 1 minute, just built in 5 minutes a day to pause and note whatever is on my mind that day. It could be something I see outside. It could be a conversation I had. It could be a podcast I listened to. It could be a memory that came up based on one of those things, and just jotting it down. Sometimes it's in the form of a question that I'm asking. Sometimes it's in the form of a list. Sometimes it's in the form of just free fall words. Like, I don't know what these words mean. I don't know where they came from. So a few days ago, I shared with a colleague that I'm collaborating with on a project, and we didn't have a name. And I said, these are the words that were in my notebook this week that are just, I don't know how they fit together. I don't know where they fit, but I keep coming back to these words. And I think they have meaning, they have significance. And I don't know yet what those are. So it is such a powerful practice. And I think it's a practice that we have to work on building, especially in a really distracted world.
Mm-hmm.
And relieving the pressure when I first, because I had writing assignments and, writing deadlines that I had as a writer, and separating the notebook, the noticing notebook,
Mm-hmm.
from writing, even though it informed it, but not feeling any pressure to do it in a certain form for a certain amount of time. I think people call it mindfulness now. There's a lot of words that we use, fancy terms, but it's just stillness in the world. And writing slows down and captures things that are important. Young children have taught me so much because they see things in the world that you don't. I was on a run this morning, and there was a 2-year-old with her mom, and the mom saying, like, come on, come on, come on, you like holding us up, because the mom's like, I got to get a walk in, I got to get home, I got to make dinner, I got to do all this stuff. But the 2-year-old was moseying along, everything, like to go 1 inch took her like this whole amount of time. And I think about what a gift that is to take. You could tell she's taking in everything. She's noticing everything. She's slow, like in her own world and space. And that, we don't do that. Not even outside on a walk. That's another thing on our to-do list, Like, I've really been doing my morning writing. I used to do it at night. And I just started like 2 weeks ago doing my morning 5-minute noticing. And it's like, it is such a calming way to enter, versus I used to turn on the news and my email right away. And because the news has been so stressful and so negative lately, I'm limiting myself to 20 minutes a day of news, because it gets in your brain, and it's harmful. I'm not saying being informed is harmful. I'm saying a constant barrage of negative fear, stress. I'm deliberately shutting some of that out.
Well, you also talk a lot about culture of organizations, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you establish a baseline for culture in organizations? And what do you think is missing in the employee experience that organizations are trying so hard to give to the employees?
That's right. So I think one of the things that's missing, besides science, because we don't have to guess at what are conditions that make human beings thrive, not just survive or make it through the day or make it through the week, but literally thrive. And so you don't have to be Google, you don't have to be Disney. even though all of their decisions, everything from the shape of the room to the kind of furniture to the environment and activities and what's on the walls, all of that is informed by science. So I think the best way is to listen to your employees. So today I was with the New York City public schools, and I had about 350 teachers. And so they're creating all new environments at home. So I didn't ask them to think about their kids. I asked them to think about an environment where they feel most alive. What are the component parts? We spent probably an hour breaking down a space, a time, and it's not going to be the same, but there are patterns that emerge in that. What is needed for your genius to thrive? And so what you find is it's not fancy things. It's not like surface level things. It is, I need to feel connected with people. I need to feel like I belong. I need to feel noticed by people. I need to know that whatever I do, even if it isn't perfect, my effort is acknowledged. So these basic things. So my question that gets to this in organizations and in schools is, what would make you run to school on your worst day? What would make you run to work on your worst day? When you didn't feel good, when you weren't at your, because it's easy to feel good if something good's happened to you, but that's an outside force. Think about your worst day when you don't even want to get out of bed, but you do, and you run to work because you're so excited about the environment that you're going to be working in. And if you break that down, and I asked 500,000 young people that question, what would make you run to school? And then we asked 25,000 employees that same question, what would make you run to work? And so I'm going to ask you before I give you the answers, but what would you say? What would make you come to work every day with a renewed sense of purpose and place and passion? You are tapping into the core of what motivates us as human beings. So we need, not want, we need to know that our presence matters, that our contributions matter, that we're valued and appreciated by other people. That is the deepest driver of human behavior. And you spoke to a purpose. I need to know that I'm working and I will put in all my effort and all my energy. I will take risks. I will be courageous if I know that it's toward something bigger than myself. We are pulled to be a part of something bigger than ourselves. So all of those things are conditions of mattering, conditions of learning, conditions of survival, and our ability to thrive at our highest potential as human beings. But if you look at work and you ask people, do you feel that every single day? Is that in the DNA of the culture? This is not an event. It's not an activity. It's not like on one day a week or one day a month where you get recognized. It has to be deeply embedded in the culture of the organization at every level. 90% of workers, 90% of students say they rarely feel like that, if ever. They can't remember the last time they felt that they mattered or that what they were doing or working on mattered. That's a problem. It's not just an emotional problem, it's a massive economic problem that costs us millions, if not billions of dollars in productivity and present. I think the conversation has to change. We understand so much more about what motivates human beings, what pushes human behavior to, like when I look at, I'm doing this collaborative research paper on the reactions during a pandemic. And they're predictable. I think that's what our brains are, pattern-making, meaning-making organisms. So if you look at the pattern of behavior, it is explainable. And I think we don't explain the brain to people. We don't explain why we're seeing this behavior. We manage behavior. We don't lead by creating conditions for different behavior to emerge. So if we looked at ourselves as leaders, as like, what do I want to say? Like a gardener, if you will. Like, you don't just throw a seed in and plop water on it and expect it to grow. You manage the conditions. You have to manage those conditions, whether you're in a classroom or you're in an office or you're in a large scale organization. And they're not only predictable, they are discussed by the world's leading organizations. There's no secret to these conditions. If you want to know how Starbucks creates their culture, if you want to know how Zappos creates their culture, if you want to know why Disney or Google or any of the other companies that have embraced this science do what they do, it's not accidental. It is not happenstance. It's an all-encompassing leadership decision. And we think the bottom line is our product, but the bottom line is our people. And if our people aren't feeling like they matter and can make a difference every day, it doesn't matter if we have the best product in the world. It doesn't.
Absolutely. It's just not about managing your profit and your revenue. It's
That's
also
right.
about people who are your main
That's
asset,
right.
they make the company.
And we say that all the time. Our customers are our number one priority. Our people are our number one priority. And I don't think any leader or any person sets out to disturb people, to make them mad or make them frustrated or exhaust them at their job. But so many other things take priority, which is why I say mattering is the agenda. It's not just an agenda. It's not an event. It's not something that happens when something bad happens. It is the agenda. It is the agenda that drives all other agendas. And if we take care of our people, they will take care of the people that they lead and serve. It sounds like such common sense, but it is not commonplace and not common practice in the majority of our organizations. We have to change that. The news is we're not talking about mass amount of money, and we're not talking about real disruption in the time that we spend with people. We're talking about a shift in focus. So going back to noticing and noting these moments in our life, I think each and every one of us can be a moment hunter. It's what I call moment hunting. Yeah. And there are certain moments of interaction, and specifically by science, the beginning interaction you have with somebody and the end interaction are the most peak moments. So if you were with a customer and it was a 15-minute conversation, they're going to remember how they felt at the beginning, and most importantly, how they feel when they walk away. No matter what happens in the middle, our brain processes the totality of the experience. Even if you're at Disney World, you're not going to remember the middle of the day. It is called primacy and recency. So if we can be moment hunters in the seconds of interaction when we first see someone and when we last leave someone, we can absolutely fundamentally change not just their potential mood, their mind, their heart, but our own. We just have to be masterful at seizing those moments and making them count. And we do that through our presence, through our empathy, through things that are as simple as eye contact, as a smile, as a pause where you show somebody that you really are listening to them and hear them. And it is so simple, but profound impact in moments, if not seconds, of time that we have with each other.
Absolutely. And when you talk about seizing these moments, now not all moments are positive. You will notice something, right. Let's say as a leader, you'll notice something that's, that'll bother you about your team. So how do you cope with that? And how do you get positivity and move ahead?
Absolutely. So it's more about authenticity than positivity. And so if there is an authentic problem, and you lead from a place of authentic truth, belief in that person, excitement that that person is on your team or is your customer, and you work through it from that lens. There's a different tone in your voice. There's a different look on your face. There's a different way that your body even interacts, and you can feel that even through a computer screen or even in a chat. So all of those nonverbal things and verbal things make a huge difference, especially in a moment of challenge, or like we're facing right now, a moment of crisis. Think about the leaders in your country, in my country, around the world, that we have turned to during this crisis. They are authentic. There's a calmness about them. There's, I wouldn't say a positivity, because the positivity and hope is in their knowledge of the value that people have and the power that people have to get through difficult things. They're not sugarcoating things. So all of those elements you think should be basic for a leader, and they're not. As you know, we've had many experiences being on the other side where someone is the opposite of all of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that, a lot of people say they're doing, or they pretend they're doing, but, they're really, really not. It's just not happening. Yeah.
You can't fake being authentic, and you can't fake an authentic belief in people. And when you know that a leader or a colleague believes in you and sees the best in you, they're not expecting perfection. They're expecting authenticity and truth and a promise to improve. And it goes back to what you were saying earlier about, if your mission is bigger than yourself, then it's not personal. That we're all trying to contribute to this mission that is bigger than ourselves. And so it's not about us. It's about us being able to be our best selves with each other. And it's a totally different way of teaching, of coaching, of leading, of serving. And I think that my biggest leadership lessons have come from being around young children, being around young people. And it's so funny, because as adults, part of our job is to shape young people, but we have a lot to learn from them as well, in the way they handle conflict, in the way they handle feedback, at their purest sense, to remember that each and every one of us was born empathetic. We were born compassionate. We were born open-minded. We were born with the ability to celebrate one another, to learn from one another, to be lifted by one another. And we are taught all those other things. We are taught judgment. We are taught contempt. We are taught prejudice and bias, and to hate and to hold in views that don't let our minds be open. And I'm constantly reminded that I am a model to young people in the world. And I'm self-checking my own behavior, because there's natural things that happen. But at the core, you go back to who we were born to be and who we were meant to be. And it is a promise to work on that every single day. So one of the things, like a practical thing that actually helps me as a leader, is it doesn't have to be every day, but at least each week. Instead of making a to-do list and letting your life be driven by what you have to do. And I think whether you're a company, whether you're a mass organizations, or you're just managing your own life in your own way, we allow our to-do lists to define us. They define our time, they define our focus, they define our feelings of accomplishment and success. And the problem with that is it's a really bad indicator of what we're capable of. Because if you're really driven, your to-do list is never done. The check that we need to make for ourselves as leaders and learners is to make a to-be list. So it was my challenge to leaders this week to think about the best leaders that you admire, that you seek to embody, that you see traits in, that you think that's something that I want to have or want to work on. and jot down a few of those things. If you looked at the leaders that you can see today that are worth embodying, they're self-aware, they're passionate, they're empathetic, they're compassionate, they're all of these things. Pick a couple of those. So if you think one of those traits is to be open-minded, then put that at the top of your list. On my to-be list this week is to be courageous, to not stay comfortable in what I've always done, because all of my speeches have been canceled. So everything that I've always done that I'm comfortable with doing, live events, are no longer available. So I have to be courageous, and I have to take action to do things I might not be as comfortable with, but I can still lead. So whatever's on your to-be list, then check at the end of every day, just a quick self-reflection. Is my to-be list, is my to-do list servicing my to-be list? And our life will be much more congruent. It's much more in balance, because we're not shooting randomly. If what I did, even if I didn't complete my to-do list for the day, I still took action toward being that kind of leader, that kind of community member, that kind of citizen. Wow. Makes a big difference. These are really little things that make a huge difference.
So yeah. When you talk of change, and when you want to change yourself, when you internalize things and you decide on change, what would be some factors, according to your experience, that would really help us make that process simpler and to really drive change and be a better person?
I think of all of the actions that I give leaders in the transition of changing themselves or helping move their organization forward, the to-do list is probably the most practical and the most powerful, because it forces you to be self-aware. So even if self-awareness isn't on your to-be list, none of the other things can be accomplished without deep self-awareness. And so I really default back to that, because right now the question isn't what do we do as an organization, but who are we being as an organization, or who am I being or seeking to become? And if we don't lock in our values in our actions, if we don't align those two things, then we're going to end up down the road taking actions, moving forward, and at the end not even recognize who we are. And so that, after grieving a little bit of losing my whole income for months and months, like many other people, instead of wallowing in self-pity, I made a to-be list. Who am I? Who am I working to be? There is nothing preventing me from being that, being as impactful, being as courageous, being as inspiring, whatever it is, just because I'm not seeing people face to face. So what can I do today so that I can still be those things for people and just not be able to see them face to face? And it's totally shifted everything. It's shifted my day. It's shifted the tools I use. It's shifted everything. And I think there's no better, more practical exercise, because it puts you in touch with, your deepest values, your deepest truth.
Right. And as you spoke about self-awareness, and that's really the highest level on Maslow's hierarchy. So
it is. Yes.
Conquer that's the ultimate, right?
That's right. It's hard because, going back to what we talked about earlier, with all the busyness, there's not really time to be self-aware. You're too busy doing. So there's this sequence that I think that is what I call a management sequence, where it is oh my gosh, I just had this written down. It is have to be. Oh my gosh, has that ever happened where the idea just went out of your head? So we make this list. Here's what we have to have. Here's what we have to do. And this is what we have to do. And then we're going to be okay. That's a sequence. So managers seek, we need this material, we need this tools, we need this. Here's what we got to do. we say to our employees or say to our customers, you got to do this, this, and this. And if we follow all that to the T, then we're going to be okay. It is not that way. There's no guarantee. But if you start with the be, do, have. This is who we are and who we are going to continue to be. You can count on that. It is our values in which we stand on. Here's what we have and here's what we do. And I promise you, things are going to be okay because you're coming from a place of deep grounding. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It makes a lot of sense. Never really thought about that, but
have, do, be versus be, do, have. So I think managers follow have, do, be, and that's how they lead their organization. This is what we have, this is what we're going to do, and then hopefully we'll be that. And I think true leaders flip that entire perspective around. This is who I am, this is who we're going to be, this is what we have, and this is what we're going to do. It's a totally different approach to people.
And in this process of, be, have, do, how much of a role do, tools and, like machines and technology, do you think they play a role?
I think they play an important role. But the key is, I believe technology is neutral. And technology's ultimate purpose is to advance humanity. So even with the powerful technologies like artificial intelligence, it's not the second coming of the world. It's not a savior, nor is it like the enemy. It is an extension of human ingenuity, human creativity, human compassion, and those have to be mirrored. If we don't match the human element with the technology, platforms, tools, and trends, then that's where we get into trouble. And so we have to put human first and then see it as a place to advance our human agenda. And technology can be incredibly life-changing if we mirror those two things together. Mm-hmm. And underneath, recognizing that AI isn't the savior. AI in itself is a technology. It was developed and fueled and initiated and shaped by human design. It should be anyway. It should be anyway if it's used right. And if we let that advance us, if we let who we are and seek to be, and then say what technology is going to advance that. I'll give you a perfect example this week with AI. I'm not usually impressed with new technology tools. I'm really not. I'm impressed with human beings and their creativity in using tools in ways that we hadn't thought of. So I have a tagline in my speeches and my writing, and it says, the smartest person in the room is the room. And so whether I'm with you live or whether I'm with you virtually, it is really important for me to get not just the feel of the room, but the insights of the room, the feelings of the room, the perceptions of the room. And there's all kinds of techniques if you're with an audience live to do that. And I'm learning new techniques if you're with an audience virtually. So a company reached out to me, and they're using AI technology to create these human exchanges. So I tested one out yesterday with 300 leaders, and the topic was leadership in a time of crisis. And so what it does is we survey the leaders before the online event. It's integrated with Zoom, and we had Zoom rooms set up, and there were these 3 exchanges throughout our hour together based on what the leaders needed to talk about. And so the first exchange or question went up, and then everybody gets a text on their phone and they respond to that question. And it's like 350 characters. So it's not like a yes or no, not something surface. Mm-hmm. So you can tell when everyone in the room responds. So think about that. Can you get 300 voices in the room to react and share their perceptions and thoughts about a concept? Mm-hmm. And so it's showing all this in real time. So then the second phase of the exchange is you have to listen and process as many responses as you can. You're not going to get through 300, but you could get through 30 or 40. And so it gives the participants in the room time to reflect on and vote, kind of like Reddit, where you vote up and vote down, so that you get the sense of what are the room's most pressing issues and what are their thoughts on that. And it shows the AI powered conversation happening in real time, so you can really see connections being made. And then it produces in 10 seconds, I swear, 10 seconds or less, the top words used in the discussions and reflections, and then the top responses, the top 10 responses. Technology should be used when you want to do something that you would not be able to do face to face. And I thought, if I was in a room physically with 300 leaders, even with the most intimate, welcoming conditions, would I really be able to get the thoughts, perceptions, beliefs of every single person in the room sharing and coming together with an idea of what was most important on people's minds? And could I do that in 10 seconds? Absolutely not. That is technology that is advancing human potential in our human agenda, to listen to each other, to understand each other, to be empathetic and compassionate, to be open-minded, to be able to welcome opposing views and reflect on it, but do it in a way that advances the bigger question or agenda. And I thought, oh my gosh, we need to give this to all our politicians. And we need to give this to students, because when every voice isn't heard in the room, we all suffer. It's not perfect, but that's technology that I can get excited about. I think that's where AI holds the most power, because if you look at the things that are on our human agenda, the ability to find information efficiently, the ability to share not only information with each other, but ideas and beliefs and perceptions, the ability to respond to people's needs and thoughts immediately. AI can advance and amplify our ability to do that for each other. But you need human beings underneath it, running it, shaping it, so that it's not randomness.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
when you kind of talk about the future now, do you think that people are going to be more empathetic, and they will bring about a cultural change because of this pandemic?
I believe in my heart, yes. And I know people accuse me of being like a rosy optimist, but I think I'm a realist. I'm a realist much more than I'm an optimist. I believe in humanity. I believe that the best of human beings exist, but the conditions for our best to come out are rare. I don't think good human beings are rare. I think the conditions that extract the best from all of us are rare. And one of the paradoxes is that the condition of crisis, the condition of unprecedented, actually brings out the best of humanity. It's sad that we need the condition of something bad to happen, but I think we have realized our need for each other. We have realized how much we depend on each other, how much isolation, even though this is physical isolation, mental isolation is just as bad. To feel like your voice is not being heard, to feel invisible when you're in the midst of a crowd. I think we have seen the real toll of what those can take. I believe we have to have more compassion for one another, to recognize that every country is affected by this. Every state is affected by this. Every demographic, every zip code is affected by this. And at the end of the day, we're all human beings that when we take stock in our life, the question we ask ourselves is, did I matter? Did I matter? I'm going to rethink. I'm going to do different. I'm going to be different. We're not perfect. Humanity is not perfect. But I think at its core, it is the best thing that we have. It is the best and brightest hope. How healing those things are, that we have to build time for that in our life, When you see whether it's somebody on TV or a movie star or a political opponent you didn't agree with, and you see them sick in the hospital on a respirator with their family, you see them now as a human being. So I hope we see each other as human beings in this together towards something bigger than any one of us.
And, lastly, just to sum it up, and, it's been wonderful talking to you.
And you too.
Thank you. Just to give kind of a send-off message to our viewers, or any important sound bites.
Absolutely. It's so simple, but you matter. You matter more now than ever before. Leadership is about making others' lives better. It's about leaving people better than you found them. That's true influence, right? And every one of us has the chance to do that every day, in small ways and in big ways. You are a leader and you matter, and the world needs your contribution.
Wow, that's a wonderful message. Very short and very powerful.
Yeah.
Very impactful. Yeah. Well,
And
Angela, it was a complete pleasure talking to you.
For me
I
too.
really
You
appreciate
are
your
so
time.
lovely. And I'm sending love and thoughts that your country heals in the way my country heals. And I'm grateful that this has brought us together. And I look forward to many, many more conversations.
Absolutely, I'd love that. And thank you so much for your wishes.
Yes.
And take care, and have
Yes.
a great day.
Yes,
Thank you so
absolutely. You
much.
too. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.